With the release of Soul Edge, Namco proved that they could make a solid weapon-based fighting game. But SoulCalibur set a new standard, earning incredible review scores and even landing as Metacritic's second best game of all time. So how was the team going to follow up on this masterpiece? More importantly, how are they going to continue the insane narrative they concocted? What's going on, folks, and welcome back to the SoulCalibur lore mini-series. Name still pending. In an effort to pay homage to this legendary franchise, I'm explaining the full history and lore of the entire series. Last time we talked about how everything started with Soul Edge and SoulCalibur. Now, we're moving to the third game, the one that introduced a feature that would shake this series to its core: guest characters. I am your humble lore professor, the Black Mastadonte, and this is the complete story of SoulCalibur II.
SoulCalibur II.
Development started around 2001. In an IGN interview with series producer Hiehachi, he explained how he wanted to evolve the franchise with this entry. "We try very hard to balance out consumer demands and what we want to accomplish as a developer. I hope this game will expand the definition of a 3D fighting game in terms of its freedom involving the usage of space and weapons." One of the skills they relied on was a technique they called motion blending. This involved combining two separate movements into one. Take Ivy, for example. The team noticed that having her walk while swinging her whip, or in a fighting stance, looked way more aggressive than her just strolling towards the opponent. So they'd have the top portion of her body do the action they wanted, while the bottom part ran or walked. Then they'd fuse them, giving us the fluid motion you see here. Additionally, they made the relationship between the vertical slash, horizontal slash, and run more apparent. They even brought back the extra weapons feature from Soul Edge / Soul Blade. However, I'd argue that these enhancements, while important, were only a small part of what made this title special. See, Namco was moving towards a multi-platform strategy at the time, so when it came to home consoles, SoulCalibur II was set to release for the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. And to spice things up, each version would get a special guest character. For GameCube players like yours truly, we got Link, specifically the Hero of Time from Ocarina of Time. The team saw the one game that beat them on Metacritic and was like, "Yo Nintendo, if you down, we could do the coolest thing ever." But with how rare it is to see Nintendo characters pop up in non-Nintendo IPs, you're probably wondering how Namco even landed this deal. Well, back in 2002, the two companies collaborated with Sega to design an arcade board based on the GameCube. Its main purpose was to facilitate the development of arcade ports for home console games. And guess what they called this new piece of tech? The goddamn Triforce. Three gaming powerhouses named their group project after the three strongest triangles in gaming history. That's too cool not to be planned. Nintendo must have been waiting for a moment like that. Unfortunately, few games came from it, but thanks to this joint venture, Link found himself in the SoulCal world. And to Namco's credit, they went in to make sure they properly paid homage to his series. Many of his iconic moves like the spin attack made it into the game. Namco also included various weapons that he used within the many Legend of Zelda titles. Their original effects even inspired how they functioned. Take Bigoron's sword. In Ocarina of Time, it was the strongest sword you can get, and it had a lot of reach. However, because of its size, Link had to use it with two hands. To mimic that, in SoulCalibur II, it also gained the reach and power buff, but it slowly drained Link's health since he was tearing through his stamina swinging it with one arm. All this did kind of break the Link canon because they were pulling weapons from all over the timeline, but he looked dope as hell, and that's what matters. For the Xbox, one would think they'd go for Master Chief. However, back then, Halo was still a pretty new IP. If they were putting a big name like Link in the GameCube version, they needed someone more established. Enter Todd McFarlane. This guy is one of the greatest comic book creators alive. He worked at both DC and Marvel before teaming up with other creators in the industry to establish Image Comics in 1992. This is when he introduced the world to a character he developed all the way back when he was 16, Spawn, the government assassin turned anti-hero from hell. While SoulCalibur II was being developed, Todd sought to design a game for his cherished creation. This led him to Namco. Originally, a possible Spawn video game was at the center of their discussion, but the conversation shifted to toys, as the comic creator also owned a toy company. Then their chat led to one about Spawn joining the SoulCalibur II roster. The character was already very popular in the States and had a decent following in Japan. Since the Xbox also had a strong fan base in the West, Yotoriyama felt that there would be a nice overlap between audiences. With that, Spawn entered the tale of Souls and Swords. Now, some may disagree with this take, but I think his inclusion was dope as hell. Though the majority of my SoulCalibur II memories came from the GameCube version, I was introduced to the series through the Xbox port. I didn't know who anyone was, including Spawn, but dude just had the sauce. He looked like a more metal version of Venom, and his moveset was fire. Well, the moveset I saw, not gonna hold you, I was a serial button masher back then. Like I had my left thumb on the analog stick and my other hand was straight abusing any buttons my fingers could reach. Spawn wasn't Todd's only contribution though. These talks with Namco also led to him creating a completely original character for the game, Necrid. Now I could praise Spawn for days, but Necrid, I don't know, even when I first played the game, he just felt generic. Like some random bad guy you'd see in an 80s action cartoon like He-Man. Interestingly enough, a couple of days after writing that line, I found out the gaming publication Game Now also compared him to a He-Man character. Crazy coincidence, maybe it's a chess piece. As for the PlayStation 2 version, Namco originally planned for Cloud fucking Strife. Imagine that, they were trying to put two of the most well-known swordsmen in gaming history in a weapon-based fighter. Unfortunately, the collab fell through at the last minute.
Not interested.
So Namco relied on one of their IPs and chose Tekken's Hiehachi as the PS2 guest character. Now, when you look at this as a fighting game player, it seems pretty odd to add a martial artist who prides himself on his hands into a game all about weapons, but that's no fun. From a lore standpoint, it's actually kind of scary how much sense this makes. This is a man who deflected missiles with his bare limbs. Actually, fuck that. This is a man who tanked Akuma's raging demon. I fully believe that Hiehachi would be a problem for anybody in the SoulCalibur II roster. In fact, I feel like he may be the only one here with a soul strong enough to conquer Soul Edge. Look me in my eyes right now and tell me Hiehachi does not have the soul of a king. Anyway, with all this going for it, SoulCalibur II launched for arcades in 2002 and for consoles in 2003. But did it manage to reach the heights of its predecessor? Well, not really. But I'd say this because SoulCalibur was just a next level experience for its time. SoulCalibur II was an improved version of a formula folks already knew, so it didn't hit as much. Don't get it twisted though, the title was still received extremely well. On Metacritic, it averaged over 90% for each console release, with the GameCube version scoring the highest cause Link. In a GameSpot review, Greg Kasavin said, "It's certainly one of the most refined, most accessible, and best looking 3D fighting games to date. And it's squarely the best game in its class for the Xbox and GameCube." Similar to its predecessor, it also won Console Fighting Game of the Year at the 7th Annual Interactive Achievement Awards. Along with that, at the first ever Spike Video Game Awards, it won in the most addictive game category. Now, as someone who got to experience this game during its early days, I can truly say that all this praise was more than deserved. SoulCalibur II just felt right. Movement was tight and the sound design and visuals made each match feel like some epic choreographed battle scene. Even now, this shit slaps. I haven't had this much fun recording game footage in a long time. I'm probably still playing SoulCalibur II as you're watching this. Oh, and that narrator though? Homie was killing it in the VO booth. Every time he hit you with his little monologue, it felt like you were entering a destiny-defining duel.
Battles risking the soul. A man becomes a slave to his own ambition.
And last but not least, that goddamn intro. Oh my god, it is still in my personal top 5 video game openings of all time. And I didn't know this when I was young, but the majority of the scenes actually contain lore, like the battle with Maxi and Astaroth, as well as the quick confrontation between Taki and Ivy. This shit is 2 minutes of peak cinema. But speaking of lore, I think it's about time we get to it. So without much further ado, let's continue the SoulCalibur timeline. But first, quick recap. At the center of our story is the demonic blade, Soul Edge. Once, it was just a regular two-handed sword, but after years of indulging in the violence of war, it learned to eat the souls of its victims, thus earning its name. Whoever dared to wield it would be corrupted by its true will, Inferno. From there, they'd mindlessly hunt for souls for their new master. So technically, Soul Edge wielded the wielder. In an effort to stop its chaotic rampage, a fragment of it was purified using the soul of the Hero King, Algol, and 2 legendary artifacts, Kali Yuga and Dvapara Yuga. They call this new blade SoulCalibur. For thousands of years, whenever Soul Edge appeared to stir up trouble, a hero wielding SoulCalibur would rise from the shadows to stop it. By the mid-1500s, the evil sword landed in the hands of the Spanish pirate Cervantes. and unfortunately it has the annoying ability to read the soul of its vessel, and turn into a weapon that best suits them. Cervantes just so happens to be a dual wielder, so he got 2 Soul Edges. He terrorized the seas as the weapon's tool, until he slaughtered a Spanish port town. Then, after sleeping with some random lady there, he stopped this killing spree for a couple of years. Fast forward to 1583, and he's finally defeated by Sophitia, a simple baker's daughter, and Taki, a ninja from the Fuma clan. Also, I neglected to mention this in my last video, but the Fuma ninja clan was an actual thing. They were a small group of guerrilla fighters who were active between 1467 and 1615. While many clans served various feudal lords, it's said that the Fuma were loyal to the Hojo clan for generations, helping them become a unifying presence within this tumultuous period in Japanese history. Anyway, during the battle with Cervantes, Sophitia managed to shatter one of his soul edges. To keep track of this event, we can call it the Break of 83. However, the last one was found by the German mercenary Siegfried. Under normal circumstances, he'd probably leave it alone, but he kinda killed his dad by accident a while back, so his mind ain't doing too good. He picked that shit up and turned into Soul Edge's new puppet, Nightmare. The transformation released a wave of evil energy across the planet in an event known as the Evil Seed Catastrophe. With that, Nightmare proceeded to terrorize the hell out of Europe. He was joined by the golem Astaroth, the warrior turned lizard man Aeon, and the alchemist Ivy. Then in 1586, 3 unlikely heroes, Kilik, Maxi, and Xianghua, raid the demonic knight stronghold in Ostrheinsburg. There, Maxi killed Astaroth to avenge his crew that the golem murdered. But in retaliation, Ares, the golem's boss, commanded the ground to eat him up. Kilik and Xianghua managed to take down Nightmare, but at the cost of the Dvapara Yuga. This just left Inferno, but instead of ending things in this realm, he dragged them into his home, Astral Chaos. As a reminder, this place also holds all the souls that he's eaten since its creation. Fortunately, it's revealed that Xianghua was unknowingly carrying SoulCalibur throughout her whole adventure. Using it, she slays the evil spirit, the shattering Soul Edge. However, she was forced to leave her spirit sword to help Kilik out of Astral Chaos, bringing us to where we are now. Nightmare is no more, and the world is safe, but breaking Soul Edge within the realm they were in caused the shards to spread all over the world, and each piece is still budding with evil energy. So that's about to be a big problem real soon. For now though, let's check in on the SoulCalibur roster and see how everyone's doing. After Xianghua and Kilik left the castle, they went searching for Maxi but failed to find him, so they assume he died. Then they go their separate ways. Kilik returns to his sensei, the Edge Master, to continue his training in purifying evil energy. Xianghua returns to the Ming Empire, but her situation is a little complicated. The Emperor originally sent her to bring back Soul Edge, calling it the Sword of Salvation, but her journey made it clear that there was no salvation in this sword, only souls. She decides that no one, not even the Emperor, should obtain it, so she lies about the result of her mission and just tells him that she failed. This pisses the guy off. Yet another one of his search teams has come back with nothing, so he strips her of her Royal Guard title and demotes her to a menial role. Regardless, she still believes she did the right thing. Hell, I do too. If this timeline has taught us anything, it's that Soul Edge is the only one that wins when it's found. Well, unless you have the soul of a king. As for the last of the trio, Maxi ends up in a random village. There he gets some much needed rest because Astaroth left them all kinds of messed up. When it comes to the rest of Nightmare Squad, Aeon/Lizardman actually benefited from Nightmare's loss. It woke him up from the trance he was in, so now he doesn't have the mind of some feral beast. Unfortunately, he's still a lizard though. And once he realizes he'll never be the same man he was, he goes down a dark, dark path. But that doesn't become important until SoulCalibur III. Which reminds me, I completely forgot to mention this in my last video, but remember how he kidnapped Rock's adopted son, Bangu, for the Feegle Sestimus cult? Yeah, Rock ended up beating his ass and saving his son before the fight with Nightmare even started, so they're all good. Just thought I should keep all my Rock fans updated. As for Ivy, last we left her, Astaroth revealed that her blade was made thanks to the very same Soul Edge she was trying to destroy. Additionally, Taki revealed that her father is Cervantes. This double whammy breaks her. She returns home and locks herself in her lab. Meanwhile, Taki goes to where the battle with Nightmare happened, hoping to destroy Soul Edge. The whole reason why she came here was to try to offset the evil energy coming from her blade, Mekimaru. However, after noticing that she missed the smoke, she leaves to just master Mekimaru on her own. As a reminder, not only is her blade naturally cursed, but she also infused it with the Soul Edge shard a while ago. Merely holding back its energy exhausts her, so mastering it is a huge deal. Yoshimitsu also arrived at the final battlefield a little too late. He was looking for the demonic blade to take down Nobunaga and everyone who conspired against his former clan, the Manji. However, throughout his journey in Europe, he witnessed the many places that were completely devastated by Nightmare. He concluded that giving into his thirst for vengeance would make him no different than his enemies. Plus, Nobunaga's already dead, and the Fuma's on the brink of destruction thanks to their leader going batshit crazy. If he just chills and waits, the universe will get revenge for him. So his goal eventually changed to taking down the man responsible for all the bloodshed. But after leaving the empty castle, he notices his sword is infected with evil energy. So his new goal is to purify it. But get this, when the guy finally gets a chance to rest, Voldo runs into him and confuses his sword for Soul Edge. So he steals it and runs back to his money pit. Once Yoshimitsu wakes up, he makes it his mission to find his sword. The fewer people we have running around with cursed weapons, the better. Moving on to another swordsman, Mitsurugi is once again struck with bad luck. The whole reason why he went looking for Soul Edge was because the rifle made its debut in Japan, and he thought that was a coward's way of becoming a soldier. But since he embarked on his quest, he failed to find it, then got shot for trying to take on the gun anyway. This time he fails yet again, and loses track of Nightmare cause, you know, he's gone. But he already got this far and honestly doesn't feel like traveling all the way back to Japan. So he stays in Europe working as a mercenary, even though he has trouble understanding what everyone's saying. As you probably guessed, Hwang Sung-gyung and Sung-mina failed their Soul Edge retrieval quest too. Fortunately though, upon finding Sung-mina, Hwang discovers that the legendary Sword of Salvation is actually evil. So he drags the girl back to Korea with him because there's no point in finding something like that, especially when Japanese invaders are still giving his homeland trouble. However, when he discloses what he learned to his superiors, they demote his ass. You sent this man to find the sword. Then he comes back with groundbreaking information about how it could be dangerous. Yet, you punish him? Crazy, crazy behavior. Then again, should I be surprised? Looking back at human history, this kind of stuff tracks. But they don't only demote him, they take away his sword, Blue Thunder, as well. So he just stays in his master's dojo until he's needed again. As for Sung-mina, nothing is written about what she does the moment she returns to Korea, but from what happened in the last two games, we can assume that she continues her training while constantly getting hit on by boys. On the flip side, once Sophitia hears that Nightmare is donezo, she returns home and marries her man Rothian. They eventually have two kids, Pyrrha and Patroclus. On the flip side, Cervantes finds shards of Soul Edge that resonate with the ones within him. In case you don't remember, some of the Soul Edge shards from the Break of 83 got into him as well as Sophitia. The Evil Sea catastrophe gave them enough energy to revive him. After finding these new shards, they meld into an incomplete sword, so he goes looking for more to finish it. And last but not least is our boy Nightmare/Siegfried. Yeah, I lied when I said he was dead. Siegfried gets spat out of Astral Chaos in 1587, and this time he's back to his senses. But now he's fully aware that he's the one that killed his dad. And he's aware of all the people he killed as Nightmare. So is Siegfried really doing better? No, not really. To make up for the insane number of sins he committed, he goes looking for a place to hide what remains of Soul Edge. This goes terribly though, because the damn sword still has a hold on him. Every time he falls asleep, Nightmare comes out to play and kills everyone near him. Then once Siegfried wakes up, he's met by the multiple corpses that his alter ego left behind. So he tries to stay awake 24/7, but that doesn't work, and eventually, Nightmare just ends up taking full control. That's crazy to think about. The first game introduced Siegfried as a pretty important character. Yet in the next two games, he's not even in the roster because he's possessed. I know that Nightmare's and Siegfried's movesets are identical, but like, imagine being a Siegfried main during the time Soul Blade came out and never being able to see your boy in a right state of mind for years. Like, Siegfried doesn't officially come back until SoulCalibur III. Soul Edge came out in arcades in 1996. SoulCalibur III didn't come out until 2005, which means there were players who waited 9 freaking years just to see this man return to normal. But with that, we're now ready to enter 1590, the eventful year where SoulCalibur II takes place. So let's hop into this next chapter and discuss what goes down during this game. Alright, so this is how we'll do this. We'll start by introducing all the canon newcomers to the roster. Then we'll get into the non-canon cameo fighters, and follow that up with how the returning cast gets involved in the SoulCalibur II plot. After that, we'll wrap things up with how this game ends. Cool? Cool. Let's begin with the other baker's daughter from Athens, Cassandra Alexandra. One day in 1590, Rothian brings home a strange piece of metal given to him by a random customer. Not only does it irritate Sophitia's old Soul Edge wound, but it also causes her kids to fight over it aggressively. Now, Cassandra already witnessed her sister go through it in the last game. She's not about to let that happen again. So she grabs the shard and marches her way over to the shrine of Hephaestus, the Greek god of the forge. Then she blacks on him.
Yo, Hephaestus, the hell's your problem? You had my sister search for this damn demonic sword twice now. Yet, now she's at home struggling with her kids, and you're quiet? How can you claim to be an almighty god and be so useless? I know you hear me, bitch.
Suddenly, she notices Sophitia's old weapon, the Omega Sword. It was blessed by Hephaestus to face off against Soul Edge. When she puts the fragment near it, it wails as if it's afraid of the thing. Thanks to this, she finally realizes that this shard is from the Cursed Blade. Ever since they entered this realm, folks from all over the world have been trying to collect them all, which only helped them spread more. So she grabs the sword and shield and ventures off to destroy them all. That way, neither her sister nor her family will ever be burdened by this shit again. You gotta respect the drive, because Cassandra isn't a warrior either. In fact, she's so bad, she often broke her weapons because of her crude handling. Now she's off to stop this blade of mass destruction solely to protect her fam. That's a dope-ass sister right there. However, before we continue, we gotta speak on Sophitia's and Cassandra's fighting style. Because while neither of them started as warriors, it looks like they did master some form of self-defense after embarking on their journeys. Upon further research, I saw they're both practitioners of the Athenian style. According to the SoulCalibur IV limited edition guide, only those blessed by Athena were able to master it. However, it's become a lost art due to the majority of the Greek pantheon being forgotten by society. Thanks to the fact that Sophitia is a devout believer and was blessed by Hephaestus, it looks like she somehow downloaded the style without actually learning it. Then she proceeded to improve with each enemy she faced. Cassandra sadly doesn't believe in the gods as much as her sister, but the purity and clarity of her soul won her some points. So taking up the weapons blessed by Hephaestus imbues the Athenian style within her too. However, due to her gung-ho attitude, her style is a bit more aggressive compared to her sister's. Now let's move to someone with an even more messed up backstory, Charade. Before he became, well, this, he was just a simple man. A man so unimportant we don't know his name or even where he's from. The dude was tired of war and adventure was calling his name. But he made the poor mistake of getting enticed by legends of Soul Edge. These stories led him to discover a few shards of the sword. Bandits heard rumors about his little collection, so they killed him and threw him in a river. They weren't going to take away what he worked so hard to achieve though. He held on to the pieces of metal as he sank. Then as if controlled by his obsession, his blood fused with them and completely consumed what was left of him. The amalgam rises later as the being named Charade. And I'm just now realizing this, but this thing's like a baby Inferno. The brown bony body reminds me of him, and the giant eye in the middle is a clear reference to the one in Soul Edge. From here, the being joins the search for the evil shards with the goal of making itself whole again. Though it doesn't have an innate fighting style, it's able to read the souls of its enemies and copy theirs. Edgemaster and Inferno also mimicked other fighting styles, but unlike them, Charade doesn't get a power boost when it does it. Now let's talk about Necrid, who, strangely enough, made his first lore appearance over 1,000 years ago. All the way back in 400 BC, he defeated the owner of Soul Edge. However, when he reached for the sword, Inferno appeared and dragged him into astral chaos. Even though the spirit was in a weakened state, he filled Necrid with so much fear that the warrior ran away. However, this left him trapped within the dimension until the Battle of Ostrheinsburg in 1586. Since SoulCalibur weakened Soul Edge, he managed to escape the realm, but he was tainted by astral chaos's evil energy, which is why he looks the way he does. And to add on to the L's, merely staying in this realm causes him pain. He traveled across the land slaying multiple other warriors assuming they were enemies. Eventually, he stumbles upon a Soul Edge shard, and to his surprise, it eases his pain, so he embarks on a quest to find the rest. I'd mention his fighting style here, but according to SoulCalibur II, the complete official guide, he just uses his own style. I can tell you that his weapon is named Maleficus, and it seems to have come from astral chaos. Moving on, next we have Raphael Sorel. Born in what is now France, Raphael grew up during a time when his homeland was embroiled in religious strife. This most likely refers to the real-life conflicts that happened between the Protestants and Roman Catholics in the region between 1562 and 1598. As he aged, he learned how to handle the rapier in a style known as la rapier de Sorel. He also learned about medicine. However, most importantly, as a member of the prestigious Sorel family, he came to understand the dark inner workings of the nobles within his country. He grew to be an unemotional and calculating individual, which earned him many enemies. But shit really hit the fan when the Evil Seed event happened. He killed a crazed noble out of self-defense, thus giving all of his ops a reason to take him out. And to make matters worse, his own family threw him under the bus to protect themselves. With no one in his corner, he ran away and hid himself in the slums. There, at the brink of death, he was saved by a young girl named Amy. She saw it as a simple deed, but Raphael saw it as much more. All his life he had to watch his own back. This was the first person who selflessly did something kind for him, so he devoted himself to making her life better. While living with her in the slums, he slowly came to realize that all the values he had as a noble were pointless. They were soulless individuals, and the people who suffered under them also became soulless, as all they did was complain. This war-torn, bleak world was no place for him to raise Amy, so he used his upbringing to his advantage to gain the trust of another rich noble. Once the time was right, he poisoned him so he and Amy could fully enjoy his riches. Unfortunately, due to the girl's life in the slums, she had trouble connecting with the outside world. Regardless, Raphael never gave up on giving her the life he felt she deserved. One day in 1590, he finds a letter talking about the evil seed catastrophe, and it mentions Soul Edge. Then, a wild idea occurs to him. What if one of these nobles happened to stumble upon Soul Edge? They'd surely start a war over it and end up killing each other off. Sure, some commoners would die in the process, but that would all be worth it if he could secure the life he wants for Amy. With that, he joins the hunt for the Shards to carry out this absolutely sadistic plan. You had me at the taking down the nobles part, but I'm not a fan of commoners being collateral damage. Next up for the newcomers, we've got Talam, the girl who talks to the wind. She's part of a group of shamans from the Philippines who secluded themselves in the mountains due to the West migration to Southeast Asia. And once again, this is an actual part of history. Spain began colonizing the area during the 1500s, forcing their culture on the natives. Its name actually comes from the Spanish king, Philip II. Talam and her people praised the wind deity, but due to Spain's influence, faith in the god waned. Talam was still a devout believer though, and as the granddaughter of the village elder, she was raised as the group's last priestess of wind. When the evil seed catastrophe happened, no one in her village was affected except for her. She felt the evil aura's presence in the wind, and it knocked her out for days. She woke up later crying her eyes out with no idea why. Given Talam's kind and innocent nature, I assume she felt the pain of everyone affected by the event. Then, in 1590, a merchant from the west brings a Soul Edge fragment to her home, calling it a vitality charm. She immediately recognizes the evil aura and decides that she needs to bring it back to where it belongs. Many in the village are apprehensive about this idea because she's only 15, but her parents feel that this journey will only build her purity and love for nature. Or, she could die. That's a big possibility, mom and dad. Regardless, Talam leaves her home for the first time, and surprisingly, she feels no fear. She has faith that the wind will guide and protect her. As for her fighting style, it's called Wind Dance. It's an extremely agile style that appears to have originated from her clan and involves the use of elbow blades. I always thought they were bladed tonfas, but yeah, elbow blades. Her own are named Sai Salika and Loka Luha. And for the last of our newcomers, we have Hong Yun Sung. Born in Korea, this dude thought Hwang was the goat of goats. So of course, he had to train under the man's master, Sung Han Myung. However, what makes Yun Sung's style cooler to me is how he adds dynamic acrobatics and kicks to the mix. Kinda reminds me of how Mugen combined breakdancing with kendo in Samurai Champloo. As he grew stronger, he began to see Hwang as more of an obstacle to prove his strength. So when he heard that he was coming back from his Soul Edge quest, he was elated. The moment he catches him, he challenges him to a duel. But Hwang has other things to deal with, like the Japanese invaders who are still attacking their home, and the fact that the higher-ups don't want to believe that Soul Edge is evil. So he denies the young warrior's request. This leaves Yun Sung depressed. Why won't his goat give him the hands? Sung Mina feels sorry for the kid, so she lends him her family heirloom, the Chinese sword known as the White Storm. Legend says that it has the ability to read the heart of the wielder. Interestingly enough, there's another blade named Blue Storm that was used by Hwang in Soul Blade. That night, Yun Sung reflects on the denied request, and realizes how selfish it was to challenge a soldier as important as Hwang when their home is in peril. And you'd think he'd take this as a lesson and go join the fight against the Japanese invaders. But no. Instead, he comes up with a plan that can take care of both of his problems. He'll find Soul Edge. That way he can save Korea and get Hwang to acknowledge his strength. Yun Sung, I get it. You're 18, you're young and you're trying to make a name for yourself. But I'm gonna need you to think about this for more than a couple of minutes, because what kind of epiphany is this? You're gonna help the war by leaving the war? If you join the fight, Hwang will see your strength on the battlefield, where it matters. Sadly, Homie's ambitions are more blinding than the sun, and he decides to take the White Storm that doesn't belong to him on his journey too. Now, before we hop into the cameos, I want to quickly introduce 3 more characters who are only unlockable in the North American and European ports of SoulCalibur II. Assassin, Berserker, and Lizard Man. Assassin is just a generic assassin whose style is the same as Hwang's. But outside of that, there isn't much we know about him. According to SoulCalibur II, the complete official guide, this character refers to a group of assassins hired by a powerful lord or spy from the east to locate shards of Soul Edge. I remember reading a few fan theories about how they're part of the Fuma and work for Toki, and though I have nothing that proves that, I have nothing that disproves it, so we can go with that. Berserker refers to the various warriors who were corrupted during the Evil Seed catastrophe. Since then, they've been running around the world causing havoc. And last is the easiest of the bunch, Lizard Man, not to be confused with Aeon. In case you don't remember, the Fegal Sestimus cult that created Astaroth also transformed multiple humans into lizard men. This lizard man represents the group that survived after the events of SoulCalibur, and they're basically doing the same thing everyone else is doing, finding the shards. Now let's get to the cameos, and since they're not canon, we can talk about their endings too. First off, Link. His backstory mentions that he just defeated an evil magician who shrouded Hyrule in darkness, which made me want to figure out who this magician was, but it seems like a random bad guy because it goes on to say that he was being controlled by Soul Edge. Link realizes that the shards of the sword are gathering in Hyrule, and senses his presence in a different dimension, so he heads to the SoulCal world to end Soul Edge once and for all. And in his ending, he manages to do it, saving both worlds. Then he goes home to deal with Hyrule's nonsense. For Spawn, the demon that he made a pact with, Malebolgia, sends him to the 16th century to find Soul Edge. In his ending, he completes the task, but after realizing how evil it is, he returns home without it. And lastly, Hiehachi. After training with his bear and bodyguard, Kuma, he stumbles upon a Soul Edge fragment. Aware of its origins, he gets excited and picks it up, but he accidentally cuts his hand in the process. This drags him all the way back to the 16th century. Once he realizes he's no longer in modern-day Japan, he makes it his mission to find a way home. However, he knows about the level of hands that were being thrown during this era, so while he's confused, he's also hype as hell to challenge all the warriors of this time. And cause he's Hiehachi, he isn't about to use any weapons. The only thing he adds are gauntlets so he can defend himself from blades. Outside of that, my man is punching and headbutting through everything. He eventually gets to Inferno, gives him the beats by the Mishimas, then returns home. Now let's get back to the canon and talk about all the veterans of the roster. Let's start with one of the bad guys, Astaroth. In 1590, once it becomes clear that Soul Edge is making its grand return, Ares revives his golem to retrieve the blade. However, this time, he has shards of the demonic sword within him. On top of that, Ares created him directly instead of commanding his cult to do so. So he's much, much stronger now. With that, he takes his axe and goes on his new quest. Oh, and here's a fun fact. Everyone in SoulCalibur II has an ultimate weapon and a joke weapon. Astaroth's ultimate weapon is named Thanatos, like the Greek god of death. However, his joke weapon is named after the character he gets his fighting style from, Rock. Anyway, Cervantes manages to do something wild and collects enough shards to form his own Soul Edge. But this time he has full control of his body thanks to the shards within him. With this new sword, he continues his murderous rampage. As for his daughter, Ivy has regained her resolve. During the time she locked herself in her lab, she accepted the fact that she and her sword are connected. She renames it Valentine as a testament to her drive to keep moving forward as a human, even though she has cursed blood running through her veins. Once she gains info on the shards that spread around the planet, she heads out to destroy all of them. Keelik also joins the hunt for the fragments, but he's had time to really think about how to destroy Soul Edge once and for all. Unlike many other people, he realized that brute force ain't gonna cut it. Maybe the answer is purification. His Kali Yuga is able to absorb evil energy, so what if he drained Soul Edge of it and purified it over time? Now, this plan makes sense, and thanks to his 4 years of training, Keelik is much better at neutralizing and purifying evil energy. However, doing so is a monumental task. He still hasn't purified all the evil within him yet. Regardless, he dedicates himself to this new goal, in honor of the family and friends he accidentally killed during the Evil Seed catastrophe. On his journey, he runs into his old friend Xianghua, and they bicker about who should destroy the blade. But what's Xianghua even doing here? Last we heard about her, she got demoted. Well, earlier this year, she found out that the Ming Emperor sent soldiers to attack a castle near her hometown. He accused them of planning a revolt, but Xianghua discovered the true reason for the attack thanks to Ming spies. Apparently, one man from the second Soul Edge search team returned to the castle with the sword. However, he didn't respond to any of the messengers sent by the Emperor, and the Lord of the Castle refused to turn him over. So the Emperor assumed they were trying to keep the blade for themselves, and sent a small army to retrieve it. But even after completely destroying the place, no Soul Edge was found. Xianghua felt responsible for this whole situation because there's no way the man had the sword. She destroyed it. If she revealed that when she returned from her journey 4 years ago, then maybe the castle could have been spared. The Ming Emperor sent her to investigate what was left of it, believing that her knowledge of Soul Edge would help her find it. But instead, she found a shard surging with the same evil energy of the cursed blade. She surmised that the man from the search team must have stayed here because he sensed this energy. However, her biggest epiphany was that Soul Edge still exists and is still wreaking havoc. so she left the castle to find all the shards and destroy them. As for the last member of the SoulCalibur trio, Maxie tries to hop back into action once he hears rumors about Astaroth running around being a menace to society. But even after 4 years of rest, his wounds are still too much for him to handle. In desperation, he heads to the village's medicine man for some quick heals, but this guy decides to conduct a ritual using a Soul Edge shard to get the job done. And the worst part is that the doctor didn't even realize what it was. Dude just saw a weird piece of metal and was like, yeah, this should work. Thanks to the ritual, Maxie is able to leave several days later, but he lost his memories of Kilik and Changhua. Moving on, let's talk about our hopeless samurai, Mitsurugi. His quest brings him to a castle near the Ming Empire. There, he finds a man named Zhang Wu getting jumped by assassins. As a reminder, Zhang Wu is Li Long's rival. While Li Long was on the run from Fu Ma ninjas, he temporarily took up the name Zhang Wu to protect himself. However, this Zhang Wu is the real Zhang Wu. Since his old rival failed to retrieve Soul Edge, he was sent to find it and assassinate Li Long if he found him. But as you can see, he failed at both. The assassins tried to attack Mitsurugi, but they can't handle the Demon of Japan. Which reminds me, in my last video, I noted that his fighting style was a crude combination of his natural physical prowess, as well as swordsmanship skills he picked up along his journey. But I never mentioned what he named it. Originally in Soul Blade, it was called Tenpu Kosai Ryu, but as he gained more battle knowledge throughout the years, he changed it to Tenpu Kosai Ryu Kai, the suffix Kai meaning improved. And one more fun fact I missed. In case you didn't make the connection already, our boy Mitsurugi is based on the real-life samurai Miyamoto Musashi. Anyway, after taking down the assassins, the wounded man hands him what they were after, a Soul Edge fragment. He asks him to keep it safe, then dips. With it in hand, Mitsurugi wonders how a powerful blade like Soul Edge could break. Then he continues his travels. Moving on to Sung Mina, she decides to head out to look for Yun Sung. Her dad once again doesn't want her to leave, but by this point, he knows better than to believe she'll stay in one spot. So instead, he chooses to wish her luck on her quest, but she leaves before he gets a chance. Next up is Sophitia. Thanks to the shard Rothian brought home, she realizes that the fragments Take removed from her wound back in 1583 left residual evil energy within her body, and that energy transferred over to her kids, which explains why that shard caused them to act out. So she enters the hunt a couple of weeks after Cassandra. But since her sister took her weapon, Rothian had to use blessed ore from Hephaestus to make another replica of the Omega Sword. So here's another thing I kinda missed last time. After the big fight in 1583, the original Omega Sword was too damaged to remain useful, so Hephaestus took it back. Then in SoulCalibur, Rothian used the ore the god gave him to make a replica of it, as well as the Elk Shield. That's what Cassandra stole. Or rather, just the Omega Sword, because in SoulCalibur II, her shield is called something completely different. So this time, Rothian either used leftover blessed ore or more blessed ore granted by the god to make a whole new Omega Sword and Elk Shield. Hephaestus pretty much got the whole family attached to Soul Edge now. Shit's crazy. Anyway, let's move on to Sophitia's old ally, Taki. Thanks to years of training, she mastered Mekimaru, and thanks to the shit ton of Fu Ma ninjas Toki sent after her, she had a limitless supply of punching bags to practice with. However, she was still in Europe, so she wondered why these guys were sent so far just to search for a blade that she presumed was destroyed. Then one day, while going through the belongings of one of her many enemies, she finds a Soul Edge shard. This not only reveals that the sword is still alive, but that Toki's on the lookout for its fragments. Homie already lost his mind. If he gets the Soul Edge fragments, it's clipped for everyone. So instead of hunting for the rest of them, she changes her target to her former father. Now for the biggest ride or die in the series, Voldo. Over the last 4 years, he hasn't heard shit from his dead master, which should be a good thing. That means he completed his lifelong goal, right? Well, he soon hears rumors about the Soul Edge shards and realizes that his master abandoned him because he brought back the wrong sword. So he leaves the money pit once again. His timing sucks though, because this whole time, Yoshimitsu was planning something big. While searching for his sword, he found a new purpose in serving the weak and underprivileged. This motivated him to devise a Robin Hood-ass scheme to rob the money pit and give the riches to the poor. While everyone's out here searching for evil fragments, my man Yoshi's doing God's work. Within the vault, he finds his old sword and a Soul Edge shard. This is when he officially names his blade Yoshimitsu. But he realizes that this shard belongs to the demonic sword, so he begins his new journey to destroy them all. And that pretty much covers everyone. So how does this all come to an end? Well, after collecting enough souls and shards, Nightmare returns to his old stomping ground in Ostrheinsburg to fully restore the blade. But an unlikely hero enters to stop him. And I'm gonna give y'all a second to guess who it is, because when I found out, I was baffled. Like, it was the absolute last person I expected. You can put your guesses in the comments, or if you're in the premiere, put it in chat. But if you know, done? Okay, cool. The dude who comes in to challenge Nightmare is none other than Raphael Sorrel. When I first played this game, I swore he was one of the bad guys, yet he's technically the hero of this title. This highlights one of the reasons why I love the way they set up this story. Because yeah, there are characters who are pivotal to the overall lore, like Sophitia, Taki, Kilik, Xianghua, but there is no definitive main character of the series. One second you can have a good-natured dude like Kilik as a hero, but the other you can have someone more in the gray area, like our boy over here. Anyway, Raphael makes it to Nightmare and challenges him for ownership of Soul Edge, and he gets his ass beat bad. But little does Nightmare know that Raphael has a secret weapon that can defeat anything, even the plot, someone he cares for. The thought of Amy gives him the strength to push past his limits and land one last devastating strike right in Soul Edge's eyeball. Nightmare writhes in pain, and the gate to Astral Chaos opens, allowing SoulCalibur to finally return. But Raphael's running on empty. He uses his chance to crawl back home. Luckily, he's no longer needed, as Siegfried finally manages to retake control of his body, and he doesn't plan on losing it again. With the quickness, he picks up SoulCalibur and stabs Soul Edge right in the face, putting both blades in a deadlock known as Soul's Embrace. But this isn't the end. The swords may be silent now, but soon they'll wake up and open the door to a saga that will make everything that happened up until now seem like child's play. To see how this all gets worse, stay tuned for my future video covering the 4th game in the series. For now, that is a complete history and lore of SoulCalibur II. What's going on, folks? Thank you so much for watching another video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, share it, subscribe as well to stay tuned for more videos like this. Also, don't forget to hype. Hyping is a new feature here on YouTube. It really helps to get videos out there, so if you really want to support, hyping would be more than appreciated. If you have any Honest Gaming History requests, I made an official form now. It's in the first comment. You guys can put your requests in there, just please. 1 request per submission, please. I'm also trying to mix in franchise lore with single character lore or like single instance lore, so if you have even specific ideas, like things that don't have to do with like whole franchises, let me know. I would love to like delve into your brains and see like what kind of content you would like me to make in terms of Honest Gaming History. Huge shout out to the Guild. If you don't already know, the Guild is my special community where I post exclusive videos. You can find my comic book reactions there, reactions to manga, my uncensored webtoon reactions as well. You also get early Honest Gaming History videos, and I also give sneak peeks on what I'm working on, so if that sounds enticing, check it out, link in the description. But with that being said, I am off this. So be easy, stay lit, stay healthy out there, you look good, and don't forget to smile today. Peace out, y'all.